Hello, everyone, and welcome to my latest and the final review for the series Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I assume it's going to be a one-shot season because there is no Falcon anymore. We'll get to that presently. Before the stream started, thank you, Tall Person. Happy National Cherry Cheesecake Day, everybody. Well, the day before was National Banana Day or whatever. I don't know what yesterday was. But today's National Cherry Cheesecake. Very specific. Thank you, Tall Person. And good morning to you all. Hope you're all doing well. I'll say a quick few hellos, and then I'll get right into it. Jaeger Pony, Corey Suzuki, Joshua Wetzel, Tall Person, of course, Funtime Bats, the Magister. Hello and good morning. All right, so here it is, the finale episode of The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, the superhero TV show with a message, a very thinly veiled message, but also ham-fisted. And, oh boy, it was bad. Okay, so where did we leave off at the end of the last episode? Well, the Flag Smashers, who somehow, without issue, traveled from Latvia to the United States without running into any kind of trouble or security checkpoints or anything else. They were going to put under siege or attack or whatever the GRC meeting, in which they were going to pass legislation or whatever they were going to do in order to enact the, I assume, forced deportation of individuals from places they may have ended up in the 5 years since the snap. So, just as a brief review of the very high-level situation here. Thanos snaps half the universe into oblivion. In the ensuing 5 years, people on Earth migrate to places where there is, well, more resources, more availability to make a living and to survive and so on. And this inevitably takes people away from their home countries and to other countries. And in the ensuing 5 years, they establish lives in these other countries and so on. Then the unsnap happens, everybody reappears, and you suddenly have people who they were thought were to be dead, suddenly back as though nothing had happened, into lives that have, irrevocably changed, as I stumble over my words, without their knowledge. And a point is made later in the show on this that is never answered. We'll get to that. And so then the GRC, the Global Repatriation Council, is apparently going to scoop up everyone who in those 5 years had migrated to countries not their own and force them back into their countries whether they want to go or not. And all of this, if you couldn't tell, and I used the phrase earlier, but all the same, it is a thinly veiled critique of U.S. immigration policy on deportation, or if you recall the conspiracy theory fears when Trump took over as president, of deportation forces going through the country and just rounding people up and sending them away. It's ridiculous. It makes no sense, and it is very preachy. But anyway, so that's where we're at. The Flag Smashers somehow had members who have infiltrated all levels of GRC security and even military security, I guess, because with their phone app that apparently nobody can crack in the entire world of the government and Stark Technologies, they recruited everybody and their brother from all corners and all walks of life to get on side with them, a terrorist organization. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. Where does the show start? Well, this episode starts where we left off in the last, where the GRC meeting is now under red alert because, well, one of the people in there decided to do some kind of lockdown thing. And in the 5 minutes since the end of the last episode in the timeline of events, the entire military force, the media, and the public have all gathered around in the street at the bottom of the GRC building. I'm just going to call it that for convenience's sake, because something's going wrong. And you know what happens when alarms start going off and red lights start flashing in a high-rise building, right? Yeah, you stand still. You don't evacuate. You don't make for the exits. You just stand there. And that's where we start. Okay, so, and all this stuff happens off camera, right? The flag smashers insinuating themselves into the building and taking over certain parts of the security and getting themselves all put together. This all happens off camera. We see a montage at the beginning of this episode of the flag smashers just like getting their plans together or whatever. And they do all of this without being detected somehow, getting through the entirety of the building without ever being stopped by security or anything. It just happens. Just poof, it just happens. Okay, it just happens. Okay, so then Bucky arrives on the scene, and he's let through as Sergeant Barnes. And I'm still not quite sure where Bucky fits into the grand scheme of his authority in things, but I guess he's recognized as just an authority figure, even though he's been off book this whole time, running around the world in an illegal operation to break Zemo out of jail and so on, but whatever. And so he walks past security in the police barricades around the building where the emergency is taking place. And then some stranger walks up to him and says, hey, Bucky, should you be here or something? And then it's some guy, but then the guy takes off the techno mask. If you remember the techno mask from Winter Soldier that Black Widow uses to disguise herself as one of the Global Security Council ladies. Or if you've seen it in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as well. And now it's Sharon Carter. And Bucky's like, what are you doing here? And she says, nobody's looking for me here. So Sharon Carter, who exiled herself to Madripoor because she was being hunted by the government for having broken into someplace and stolen Captain America's shield, just somehow arrives in America without any problems, which apparently she could have done at any time over the last 5+ years, but just now decides to do so. And then in front of all of the security forces, not only was she able to get past all of the security and military forces barricading the building in the first place to get behind the lines to say hi to Bucky, but in front of all the military, all the public, and all of the media that's been gathered around this building, she takes off her mask. Nobody's looking for me here? Well, that might be true, but you sure as heck outed yourself now. And if it was so easy to return to the U.S., why didn't you do it in the 5 years previous? What? Anyway, we jump so she's now back and she's going to be helping out in this situation, of course. Okay. We jump back into the GRC main building, and then with everybody just standing around looking at the flashing lights and the alarms and everything, all these top level officials in the government, everything is kind of like standing there like idiots. Then these flag smasher guys roll gas bombs into the middle of the room to coax them out of the room towards the exits. Like you would need that kind of prompting, I suppose. Okay. Well, then the flag smashers, the ones that are not insinuated themselves or disguised, well, not even disguised, but just are military officials or whatever else, start running through the building. And that's when Captain Sam shows up. I'm not going to call him Captain America just for the sake of clarity here, but Captain Sam shows up. And I'll admit, first couple seconds of his arrival, with his wings and the suit and the shield and the whole nine yards, looked pretty cool. Okay. And as a character design, and of course, I'm familiar with the character design from the comic books, but in the overall presentation of the characters look pretty cool. And some of the moves he makes over the course of the couple of fights he has, pretty cool. There are some problems, though. We'll get to those. Okay, so he shows up, he smashes through the window, and starts fighting the flag smasher guys. Okay, and we get kind of a little fight scene there. And what becomes obvious very quickly is that, and we've already known this, and it's made a point over and over again, Sam is not a super soldier. Okay, Sam has no superpowers. Right? It's one of the things that I mean, is meant to separate him from everybody else. Except that the show goes to great lengths to have people who should be just regular people do things that are beyond the scope of normal people. Now, if you're going to hype up reality, and obviously that you have to for a comic book show, and you're going to hype up the abilities of people between normal people and super soldiers, you have to actually show a power differential between the two. Even if the normal people are more hyped up than real people would be, the super soldiers have to be comparatively ridiculously powerful. Okay. And we didn't see that. We didn't see that in the fight between the Wakanda Secret Police and the non-super serumed John Walker 2 or 3 episodes back. It was just normal people versus normal people, but somehow a military-trained veteran Captain America can't defend himself against normal people with spears. This show has a very, very large problem with actually representing the reality of the universe that they're working in. Now, I made a similar comparison earlier this week to the preview that came out for Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, and a lot of people complimenting the action in it. And I wasn't that impressed with the action shown in the trailer because as compared to something like The Winter Soldier, where everything felt very visceral, like it felt very in-universe, right? There wasn't anything really showy about it. It was really rough, and it had a gravity and a weight to it. The magical kung fu of that trailer took away a lot of the impact, no pun intended. And that's what this show has had a problem with, is sort of showing and scaling the power levels between characters to really show off either a threat or a weakness. And they're very selective as to when these things come up. I'll get to more of that as we go because it becomes very obvious later on. Anyway, so Sam fights some of the Flag Smashers while Bucky is in the building. Now, the priority right now is to get the people out of the building, right? To secure the officials, to save and rescue the civilians from the Flag Smasher attack. Okay, so Bucky is to see to the, well, safe and secure transfer of people out of the building. Oh, but then some mystery lady who it never makes any sense who she is or why she's there, some lady who's in like a business outfit or whatever, in the middle of a crisis, she gets a phone call from Carly, leader of the Flag Smashers, and just hands the phone to Bucky. So she hands some several $100 smartphone to Bucky Barnes, and we don't know who this lady is, and we never see her again. And then Bucky has a conversation with Carly, where Carly's trying to convince Sam that her cause is right. Haven't you ever had to do anything that was larger than you before? She asks Bucky Barnes, World War II veteran, guy who fought Thanos to save half the universe. You know, that guy. And why is she having this conversation with Bucky? Why is Bucky even entertaining talking to her? I don't know. Just to, again, try to make us, I don't know, sympathize with Carly Morgenthau and the Flag Smashers? Anyway, so as he's having this conversation with Carly, we get to see that there are still agents of the Flag Smashers embedded in the military forces who are now ushering the officials into these armored vans, these armored sort of like carrier things they just had at the ready, I guess, to safety, presumably. But our secret agent Flag Smasher guy is putting these big locks on the back of the doors, these sort of high-tech gizmo locks that are supposed to, I guess, seal the doors more so from the outside so they can't be opened, right? Okay, because that'll come into play later. And by the way, there are so many people embedded in the security forces that all just happen to show up, and they all happen to know what their roles are in this grand scheme. Very convenient. Very convenient. Anyway, so Bucky's having this conversation with Carly. He suddenly realizes that he's been distracted. And even Sharon Carter, has to say, and this is a line that she says, seriously, Bucky, you had one job. Right? As everybody's being kidnapped. Yeah. Bucky Barnes is made out to be an absolute moron. Absolute moron. Okay, so yeah, the Flag Smashers were able to embed their people into every key security personnel position, from guards to military to helicopter pilots. Okay, of all the people being ushered down to the basement, to the garage to get out in these armored cars, for some reason, this small group of officials are ushered upstairs to the helicopter pad to be taken away by helicopter. And lo and behold, the helicopter pilot is one of the Flag Smashers. Is obviously one of the Flag Smashers. Now, how did he get up there? How did he get through all the security that was down there? How is it that everybody and their brother just sort of let this happen? Who knows? Doesn't matter. Needs it for the story. Okay. So then Batroc shows up, right? Remember Batroc? Right? Remember the kind of cool character from Winter Soldier who fought Captain America, who like challenged him to fight him without the shield, you know, mano a mano, even though Captain America was a super soldier and Batroc wasn't. And Batroc obviously had no chance, but at least they had a good fight. Okay, remember that guy? Interesting character from the comic books, longtime villain of Captain America. Well, he's got a hard-on now to kill Falcon for having upset his whole deal in the first episode with his own hostage situation. Okay, so now Batroc has made his way into the building. How? Well, I don't know. He just did it. Okay. And now he's going to fight Sam. And so they have a fight, Sam and Batroc. Batroc, who has no weapons. He's just hand-to-hand. He is a hand-to-hand master. He's a practicer of Savate, feet fighting and everything. And it becomes obvious very quickly, Sam cannot fight Batroc mano a mano. Sam needs the shield. Sam only, quote unquote, defeats Batroc with the shield, with his wings, with his rocket jets. Sam, Captain America, Steve Rogers, took on Batroc, no weapons, hand to hand, and they had a pretty good fight, and Batroc got a couple over on him, but of course, Steve Rogers is a super soldier. He has some advantages. Sam Wilson, none of those, but he can't take on Batroc hand to hand. So he defeats Batroc by knocking him down. But that's when Sharon Carter radios in that they're getting away in a helicopter, or the helicopter's taking off. Now, at what point, and maybe I missed it, maybe I missed this information somewhere, and if I did, then okay, I'm the moron, but at what point did anyone on the ground, Sharon Carter, who's been in a parking garage this whole time, at what point did anyone know that the helicopter pilot had been compromised? At what point did anyone know that the people in the helicopter were under threat? I mean, again, if it was part of the information being relayed in the show, it was so quick and so in the jumble of everything else that I missed it. So I'm just complete disconnect in my mind. But somehow Sharon Carter knows that the people in the helicopter or the helicopter's been compromised. So Sam conveniently has wings attached to his suit. We have to show off the fact that Captain America now has wings and can fly and have some aerial combat. And the only way we do that is to put somebody under threat in the sky. And so we arrange for a helicopter to be hijacked. Somehow they know it's hijacked, even though no one else knew it was hijacked, but we do. Okay. So what does Sam do? Well, he knocks Batroc down and then leaves him there and jumps out the window to go fly off after the helicopter. Batroc, international terrorist and murderer. Okay, just let him go, I guess. Priorities. Don't restrain him. Don't knock him out. Cuff him. Something. No, just okay. So Sam goes flying off after the helicopter. And Bucky gets on a motorcycle and starts chasing down the armored cars full of other hostages. Okay. And so Sam goes back and forth chasing after the helicopter. All right. Then we cut to a scene where Carly Morgenthau and her followers are, I guess, just at a construction site that's near to where this is all happening. I'm not quite sure what that construction site is, but it becomes a very primary location here shortly. Anyway, so she's talking to her cohorts, right? And, oh, I skipped a part. I apologize. I got to back up a little bit. This is ridiculous. As Sam is chasing the helicopter, right? He's flying after the helicopter. He asks his AI little robot drone friend, Red Wing. He asks his AI robot drone friend, Red Wing, to go check and see if anyone in there has flight training, as in anyone in the helicopter, any of the hostages. There's like 6 people in there besides the pilot, right? What a long shot gamble that is, isn't it? But amazingly, miraculously, there is a military-trained helicopter pilot amongst the officials in the helicopter. A military-trained helicopter pilot who doesn't at all think to try to disable the pilot of the helicopter, who is obviously a terrorist and trying to kidnap them. Nobody in that helicopter decides to try to do such a thing. They just sit there. Okay, well, anyway, so Red Wing flies up, scans the faces of everyone, and surprise, surprise, a lady in there is a helicopter pilot. Expert writing, everyone. Okay. Then we jump to the construction site where Carly and her followers are gathering to chat. And Carly says that, you know, if this doesn't go the way we want to, then we'll kill the hostages. And again, just like we've seen in scenes previous throughout the last several episodes, all of her cronies look at her like she's crazy. Right? Killing innocent people, kill the hostages, really? This is after she has bombed a distribution center and killed civilians and injured others. This is after she killed Battlestar. This is after she has done so many things, putting so many people's lives at risk or taking lives, and they still look at her like she's crazy for suggesting taking anyone's life in their grand pursuit. Why are these people following her? If their stomachs churn at the notion of taking innocent lives, why are they still involved in this? No clue. Makes no sense. At no point do we get any information as to what the turning point is for any of these side characters to continue going along with this, if they are so irked by even the idea of violent action. And this is after they've already laid siege to the building and kidnapped everybody, mind you. But anyway, she just kind of looks at them like, you're going to do what I say. And they're like, yes, one world, one people. Just, anyway, that just drove me nuts because, and if this was the first time it was happening, it would make no sense because we're so late in the story. But this has happened over and over again. Every time Carly Morgenthau either does or suggests something ridiculously extreme or violent, suddenly everyone else has second thoughts, but never act on it. So it's great. Anyway, helicopter chase continues. The helicopter, piloted by the terrorist guy, aims itself at a police helicopter that just happened to intercept it somehow, because it knew where it was going to be. Anyway, the helicopter, the police helicopter, dodges out of the way and loses control as it gets shot up by a terrorist guy from inside the helicopter. Yes, the guy in the helicopter, flying the helicopter, is flying the helicopter, and he's got a heckler and Koch, like HK or something, and he's shooting through the window at another helicopter. This damages that helicopter, and then Sam has to break off his pursuit of helicopter bad guy to go save helicopter police guys. And he does this himself with Red Wing and lands them safely onto a bridge where everybody sees Captain America for the first time with his big wings and everything. Everybody's like, yay! Like it takes off. Okay. And then he goes after the helicopter again because we have to have more contrived aerial action for the flying Captain America. All right. So, anyway, then we go back down to the ground where the trucks filled with. Hold on, sorry, I'm jumping ahead here a little bit. I got my time track on the video here. Okay, so now we jump back to Bucky chasing after the armored cars carrying the other hostages, and the armored cars carrying the other hostages are suddenly blocked in the road by our super soldier flag smashers pulling out these jersey barriers to block the way. And now they're going to, I guess, kidnap the hostages that they've already kidnapped somehow. Well, yeah, but they pull out the doors on the vans and take out the guards who are driving the trucks in order that they can take over the trucks and then drive off with the hostages. Now, how they didn't already have their agents embedded in the drivers of the trucks as well, since they were able to do everything else, I don't know, but I guess we had to have a scene where they had to stop for a second, because that's when Bucky shows up on his motorcycle, and he starts fighting them in the street, and all that good stuff, right? And suddenly Carly's there, right? Carly suddenly shows up, and she's part of the fight, and she tells her people, we need a distraction, light one of the vans on fire. Right? Okay, we're going to kill the hostages. So one of her cronies pulls off the gas can from, I think, either Bucky's motorcycle or something else, dumps the gas all over this armored car and lights it up. Now, do you see a problem here? An armored steel car, which is basically like a secure van, throw gasoline on it, light it on fire. What happens? The gasoline burns up and the truck just sits there because it's an armored frickin' car. But this is the most flammable steel on the planet, apparently, because this armored car just lights up like a candle, and then Bucky has to break off his fight to go save the civilians. And so as he does that, who shows up? John Walker with his, ramshackle Captain America shield made out of steel and the Captain America uniform, which I guess the government didn't take away from him after he was debriefed and stripped of his role as Captain America. He was able to keep the outfit and the armor and everything somehow. Okay. So he shows up and he starts fighting the flag smashers. And I'll be honest, the one diamond in the rough of this whole show, honestly, has been the character of John Walker. I mean, even though a lot of his stuff has been kind of contrived in places, he's the one character that actually has something of an arc. Like, he actually changes over the course of the show. He actually shows that he's a conflicted character in a lot of ways. It's not just one way or the highway kind of deal. Everybody else in the show is so static and so boring. But John Walker actually changes. You actually see a change in this character over the course of the show. I like the character that they've established of John Walker. The problem is that they put him into this show with all the other nonsense going on. You could have had a much more interesting show, a much more, character-driven story if you hadn't put all this nonsense international flag smasher BS into it and just had it be a struggle between Captain America as an ideal and the conflicting notions of what that means between Sam and John Walker. That would have been great, but opportunity lost. Anyway, so then John Walker starts going to town on the flag smashers. And in the middle of this fight, I kid you not, Carly Morgenthau, leader of the Flag Smashers, killer of innocent civilians, willing to kill innocent civilians, murdered Battlestar, she says to John Walker, with all sincerity, I didn't mean to kill your friend. I'm going to say that again. I didn't mean to kill your friend. If you recall, Carly Morgenthau, super soldier, versus Lamar Hoskins, regular person, kicked him into a concrete pillar, crushing him in the process of attempting to kill John Walker with knives and fists and everything else. I didn't mean to kill your friend. Yeah, okay. That doesn't really stop John Walker, thankfully, and he continues the fight. And in the course of watching this, watching these guys fight Bucky, watching these guys fight John Walker, and I don't know if I brought this up in the episode, a couple episodes back, but something that continues to strike me as I watch this show is this: how often these untrained goobers who just happen to have super soldier serum in their veins are able to stand toe-to-toe with combat-tested veterans and superheroes, right? Because they all have super soldier serum at this point, right? Bucky Barnes, John Walker, and all these flag smashers. Yeah, they got the super soldier serum. So physically speaking, they're on even keel. But ability, experience, tactics, whole nine yards, somehow these flag smasher guys are just as well trained, as well experienced as World War II veteran, superhero, former super assassin Bucky Barnes, and three-time Medal of Honor winner, military-trained Captain America John Walker. Again, if you're going to have characters fight each other who have equal ability physically, but different ability training-wise, you have to show it. Otherwise, you make a mockery of the difference, right? It's just ridiculous. Anyway, so we have a large street fight between John Walker and Bucky. They go back and forth and everything. Fight. Okay, we get back to the helicopter, and Sam is able to tap into the lady's phone on the helicopter, the pilot lady, the lady who just happens to be a helicopter pilot. And he tells her to get ready to take the controls when he does a thing in a minute. And so what Sam does is he flies through the helicopter, knocking the pilot out of the helicopter and into the water below. And then pilot lady jumps forward, jumps in the seat, takes control of the helicopter, and conceivably flies them off to safety. Yay. Lives are saved. Sam's a hero. Yay. Okay. I mean, yeah. That whole fight scene just seemed like such a distraction and just seemed so conveniently contrived for someone who has the ability to fly. Right? So we had to have some aerial combat somewhere in there and just worked it in there. Anyway, so Carly and John Walker are still fighting. Fight in the street. And then one of the vans full of innocent civilians is driven through a wall or through a barrier and is now hanging from the edge at the top of the construction site. So it's about to fall like 200 feet down to the bottom, killing everybody in the van. It's just dangling on the edge, right? And you see John Walker standing there looking at the van about to tip over and looking at Carly Morgenthau off to the other side who's about to get away. And you see him make the decision. Do I continue in my quest for revenge or do I save these people? And he makes the right choice. And he grabs the car by its back. He's super soldier. He pulls it back, and he saves the people. But then Carly and her goons attack John Walker. And I have to ask, what was the point of Walker's decision to save the people instead of chasing Carly if Carly doesn't actually make good on the escape, but just jumps him again? Okay, so anyway, Carly and her super Flag Smashers jump John Walker and knock him and themselves all the way down to the bottom of the construction site, and in the process dislodge the armored van again to where it's just about to tip over. And it's just about to tip over, but then, out of nowhere, comes Captain Sam. And what does non-superpowered Captain Sam do? He flies to the front of the car that is tipping down towards oblivion, braces himself against this several-ton armored car, and with the power of his jetpack, is able to push and lift this car back to steady ground. So just to reiterate, Captain America's jetpack thrusters endow a non-super soldier serum human with superhuman strength. Setting aside that if those thrusters actually could generate enough thrust to counterbalance a falling several-ton armored car, it would crush Sam's arms and his body into the car. No, setting that aside, all we see Sam do after lifting this armored car with jet thrusters back into safety is him rub his shoulder a little bit. There's something that a lot of comic book movies, a lot of movies in general, don't get right. Okay? And you can spot it pretty quick. When you have something incredible going on, you have to have rules, and you have to stick to those rules. If you have a creature, let's say, I'm just going to pull an example out of my ass. If you have a monster who only hunts by sound, okay, you can't in one scene have the protagonists taking precautions to mask their sound, and then in another scene seemingly not care about the noise they are making. If you set a rule, you have to stick to it. And the problem with this show, at least one of the many problems, again, is the depiction of power levels and what people are capable of doing, and keeping that within the framework of the reality you're creating. If everybody is a super soldier, even those who do not have the super soldier serum, then nobody is a super soldier. It just doesn't work. Why couldn't you have just let John Walker save the people in the van? Why couldn't you have let that be a somewhat fully redeeming moment for him? Instead of like knocking him out of place, restarting the crisis all over again, and having Captain America Sam Wilson do it? What was the point? Choose one. First off, as far as a character building moment, choose one. And then as far as a power differential moment, the Sam thing made no sense. It just takes it completely out of the moment. Okay, well, anyway, after saving the people, one of the civilians says, "You go, Black Falcon." And then the other person says, "No, that's Captain America." And I just groaned, because what else could I be? Anyway, so Carly is now running around in the bowels of the construction site, running away from John Walker, who's chasing her, and conceivably, Captain America and Bucky Barnes. Well, who should intercept Carly in the middle of this construction site that the only way anybody got down into was either by falling or jumping down into? Sharon Carter is there. Sharon Carter is there. And she's got a gun on Carly. And Carly's got a gun on her. And in the most not surprising reveal ever, we are told Sharon Carter is the power broker. Can you believe it? Did you see that coming? And just like WandaVision, we are, as fans of these comic books in this universe, completely and totally disappointed and bummed out that our theory was cooler than what the writers came up with, right? That Arnim Zola was going to be the power broker, maybe. Or if you really want to go off into the distance of movie lore at this point, maybe the leader. No. It was Sharon Carter the whole time. It was Sharon all along. You know. Which makes absolutely no sense. And here's why. Okay, so Sharon Carter, power broker, right? She's selling weapons and secrets and abilities to people for money and power, right? She sold the super soldier serum to these people who somehow afforded it or something in order to give them powers and have something of a product to sell. Now, what happened in like the second or third episode where Sharon Carter accompanies Bucky and Sam? Remember, Bucky and Sam, who the power broker put a hit on, which means Sharon Carter. Sharon Carter accompanies Bucky and Sam, who have a hit on them from her, to the location of the guy who makes the super soldier serum for the power broker. And as Bucky and Sam are in the secret lab confronting the scientist who makes the super soldier serum for the power broker is up top fighting off the assassins or her own henchmen. It's never really made clear because they come in pretty well armed, fighting off and killing the people trying to fulfill the contract put on by the power broker. And in the process of this, one of them blows up the lab, destroying and would have killed, if Zemo hadn't done it first, the person that makes the super soldier serum for the power broker while the power broker is present. And the power broker puts her life at risk amongst people who are trying to kill the people she put the bounty on as the power broker. Why? Why? I just... Anyway. So, yes, Sharon Carter is the power broker. Oh my gosh. And then Batroc shows up to also confront her about being the power broker and how he wants more money for this. Because Batroc got from the top of the skyscraper where he fought the Falcon, Captain America, got down through the building with all the military around, got out the building 3 blocks down the street and down to the bottom of the construction site without impediment, apparently. And then there's a shootout where Sharon Carter kills Batroc and Carly shoots Sharon in the gut. And then that's when Captain America, Sam Wilson, shows up. And with a gun aimed at him, right? Carly's aiming a gun at Sam. Sam does not have his shield out. He's just standing there. With a gun aimed at him, he tries to negotiate with her. He expresses sympathy to her and so on, and empathy about her cause and this, that, and the other. And he says, "Let me help you." And what? Okay, so he says, "I'm not going to fight you." Why the heck not? Well, why wouldn't he fight her? She's just attempted to kill more people. She's got a gun on you. Why wouldn't you fight her? Anyway, so we cut to a scene where Bucky and Walker are chasing after a couple of the other straggling flag smashers, and they beat them up. And now the two of them are just cool, I guess, right? They corner the rest of the flag smashers into a trap where these 4 flag smashers it looks like it's going to be a fight, right, between Walker and Bucky and them. But no, they've funneled them into a trap where suddenly all these security guys with guns are around and they arrest them. And then Walker quotes Abraham Lincoln, and then he and Bucky walk off like pals. I guess Walker's cool now after what he did and the fight that they had and them taking the shield from him. All wounds are healed or something. I mean, sure, Walker gained back some cred by saving that van full of people, but now Bucky's just like, bygones be bygones, I guess. Anyway. And then we cut back to Carly and Sam fighting. And she's doing her kung fu stuff, and he's kind of defending himself, and she keeps saying, fight me, fight back. She says this after Sam has rocketed her into a concrete pillar and then up into a steel grating. I mean, he might not be throwing fists, but he's not just being passive. He's not just standing there and taking punches or something like Steve Rogers did with Bucky at the end of Winter Soldier. So it makes absolutely no sense. What do you mean, fight me, fight back? He did. He tried to hurt you. Anyway, Sharon Carter eventually shoots her. And Carly Morgenthau, as Carly's got Sam cornered. And Sam cradles her in his arms, and she looks up at him and says, I'm sorry. Why? Why? Every moment in this episode, whether she was talking to Bucky or talking to her followers, she said, it doesn't matter if I die, the movement is strong enough to go along without us. And this is what we have to do. We're willing to sacrifice ourselves. What is she apologizing for? What? She's the true believer. She's the zealot. This was all part of her plan. It didn't matter if she died or not. This was all for the good of the cause. And she's apologizing? Why? And then Sam, cradling Carly Morgenthau, murderer and terrorist and person who just tried to kill him after killing Battlestar. He looks at Sharon Carter, who he doesn't know is the power broker, by the way. We know that she's a villain, but either way, she just saved his life. He was about to die. He was going to be shot point blank by Carly Morgenthau. Sharon saved his life. He gives Sharon the stink eye. Why? She saved your life. Carly was going to shoot you. You weren't talking her down. You weren't succeeding in negotiating with her. She was trying to kill you. And then we get a slow motion, mournful body carry. Sam with Carly in his arms, carrying her out. And then he flies her off and then lands in the middle of the street where all the emergency workers are and where the officials have been freed, and they're standing out in the street, and he puts her down. So, literally an angel from above lowering a martyr back to earth. Okay? Exactly what Carly Morgenthau wanted to be, a martyr for her cause, and Sam has just given that the biggest visual ever you could ask for. Right? The girl that just attempted to burn to death innocent people inside of a car. The person who bombed a building and killed 3 people. The person who killed Battlestar. And then comes the worst part of this whole show. In fact, I'd say probably the worst part of this entire series. Sam Wilson, newly self-branded Captain America, has a debate with the GRC officials in the middle of the street after this terrorist attack in front of all the cameras over the morality of what they are doing. But first and foremost, the morality of the words they are using. The main GRC guy thanks Captain America for helping stop these terrorists. And he says, you have to stop calling them terrorists. Why? The guy even asks him, why? And we get the most ridiculous speech you could imagine. The most social justice, denying reality, making apology for violence for the good cause I think I've ever heard a superhero make. In the span of about 3 minutes or so, whenever this goes, however long this goes on for, we get lectured to that what the Flag Smashers were doing was the wrong way, but with the right reason. Sam criticizes them for trying to have armed people come and drive people out of their homes. And first off, as if none of these issues would have been debated amongst people in a real governmental position prior to this vote and all this other stuff. No, we're going to have this debate here in the middle of the street after a terrorist attack. But he questions the wisdom and morality of what they're doing and taking people out of their homes. And the official guy brings up a very good point. As I said before, he says, well, so what are the people who arrived back after the snap supposed to do when they show up in their own homes and they've been occupied by other people? Are they just supposed to be homeless? What are you supposed to do? And Sam doesn't have an answer for that. It's amazing to me the writers would even put that in there as a challenge if they're not going to have an answer to it. But he just goes off and says it's more complicated than that. I know it's complicated. But he says, and I'm not even kidding. Sam lectures these guys on their power, on their privilege. And he asks them, he cites this terrorist attack in which they felt helpless as a teachable moment to where maybe they can empathize with the people they are victimizing. He cites a terrorist attack as a teachable moment for the victims of the terrorist attack to empathize with people who aren't terrorists. And then he says this, and I wrote this down. I'm a black man carrying the stars and stripes. I know 1 million people are going to hate me for it. I'm not blonde-haired and blue-eyed. We can do better. You can feed 1 million people with a phone call. I am cherry picking quotes from his speech, but they're all in there. So basically, he's called some unknown number of people a bunch of racists, obviously. He's condemned the notion of anybody having blonde hair and blue eyes as though that's some kind of sin to carry. He makes the outrageous claim that these people, as in the people in charge, I guess, can feed 1 million people with a phone call. I've heard that before. We can feed everybody. We just have to choose to do it. How many TEDx talks have I done or things like that where I've heard that claim? You know, we have enough resources to feed, house, and clothe everybody tomorrow if we wanted to. Really? It's that easy? Oh, okay. He complains that more people like you are at the table to make decisions than, I don't know, other people. And who is he talking about like you? I'm not sure. In any other context, I would figure he's talking to, and especially in this speech, white people. But when he says this, he's looking at some old lady who, at least as far, indeterminate origin as far as I can tell. I don't know, but I don't know what he meant. And then he says, this girl died trying to stop you. What? And he warns them. And I'm paraphrasing. If you want to hear this, you can probably find the clip somewhere on the internet at this point. But he warns them that effectively, if you thought this was bad, just wait until 2.0. Basically, he's saying, give in to the terrorists. If you don't do what they say, they will come back worse than this time. Do what they want before they kill again. Quote, you people have as much power as an insane god or a misguided teenager, unquote. He was comparing these public officials, however misguided they may or may not be, to Thanos and to a terrorist. And then he walks off to Bucky, who kind of pats him on the back and is like, wow, that was some kind of speech. It was the most insane, stupid, ridiculous thing I think I've heard, and especially coming from someone who is Captain America now. Telling these guys who are just victims of a terrorist attack, of murderous terrorists, that they need to shape up, or there's going to be more terrorists coming. And what is the eventual outcome of this, as we find out later in the show? Oh, they did change their policies. How did they change their policies? I don't know, but I guess they changed them more in line with what the terrorists were demanding, which is always a good sign. That's always a good signal. How do you get your way in this world? Oh, hurt people. Hurt people until the people you want to change their minds change their minds. So says Captain America. Anyway, we cut to the 4 super soldier flag smashers who were arrested when John Walker and Bucky cornered them. They've been put into jumpsuits and with super duper handcuffs on them. I assume that they're made out of vibranium or something. I don't know. Anyway, they're loaded onto an armored car, and the guy who is closing the door on them, being loaded into the armored car, whispers to them in a Hydra-like sense, one world, one people. Oh, so they know they're in good hands. And he closes the door on the van, and then we get a long shot of the van taking off, and then it explodes. Yeah, the armored car with the last remaining flag smasher super soldiers, well, except for the one that fell into the river, I guess, which we find out later, I guess, survived, are blown up. Or was he in there too? Maybe he was in there too. Anyway, I think this is supposed to be the end of the flag smashers, the last of the super soldiers, except for, John Walker and Bucky and so on. Anyway, the thing blows up. And then we pan off to a very fancy car on a hill overseeing the convoy of cars, one of which just blew up. And we see an old man in the car with a remote control. And I have to stop for a second because, who the hell is that? Oh, wait, is that Zemo's butler? A character we saw, twice? 4 episodes back? Had maybe 1 or 2 lines of dialogue, if that. I'm like, is that? And yeah, then we cut to Zemo on the raft, in a cell in the raft, the super duper maximum security prison that he's in now, listening to the radio about how the car blew up, and he smiles. So, elderly butler guy somehow arrived at all this chaos with enough time and foresight to plant a bomb on a specific armored car that would carry away 4 super soldier flag smashers and still be able to do that, get away with it, get back to his car and oversee the whole thing with his remote control in time to turn it on and blow them up. Sure. Why not? Why not? Sure. Why do I ask questions anymore? Okay. Well, and then after that, and after Zemo hears this news, we jump back to the room, the set where John Walker was officially stripped of his Captain America duties. It's the big conference room with all the chairs and the podium and all that stuff. Bright white marble, the whole 9 yards. Seems very out of place. Now, who is here? Well, John Walker's wife and Valentina Fontaine, or Madame Hydra. Julia Louise-Dreyfus again. I have to assume they shot all of her scenes in one day at this one set, because that's the only thing that makes any sense. Anyway, she's chatting to John Walker's wife. Now, they have not established in this show. I mean, I know as a comic book fan where she fits into the mythology, but I don't know where she fits into the mythology of the MCU. Anyway, the Countess here, we don't know who she works for. They've never said, they've never indicated anything, just that she does exist and is somebody, apparently. Anyway, she's sitting there with John Walker's wife, and they're just kind of kibitzing about things. And she goes back and forth on teasing that maybe she's arranged for all this stuff to happen or not, or maybe or not. Like, what? I don't know. Julia Louise-Dreyfus trying to do comedy in this instance doesn't click. Anyway, so then John Walker walks out in his U.S. agent outform. It's just basically the Captain America uniform. As he says, it's exactly the same, except it's black. It's more like a charcoal gray instead of a blue, but yeah. And it still has the A on it on the chest, but not on the helmet, I think. And yeah, she calls him the U.S. agent. And then she walks out, and then John Walker and his wife start celebrating. I'm back. Doing what? For who? How? What? No information. We don't know who the Countess actually works for or what organization she is running. We don't know what John Walker is now doing wearing this new uniform in I assume, governmental building where he got effectively court-martialed, more or less. And he's celebrating with his wife for some reason that we don't know. Okay, I don't know. I have no idea. Now, as I said, out of this show, the only character that had an arc of any significance was John Walker. He's the one shining diamond in the rough, relatively speaking. So I hope that character gets something else to do going forward, because I do like the character, relatively, and I do like the actor. I just wish that he had been more a part of this show than as he was. Anyway, this is the wrap-up period of the show, by the way. So then we jump to Bucky, who finally goes off to the old man that we met in the first episode, whose son Bucky had killed while he was Winter Soldier, and he confesses to the old man that he killed his son, and the guy starts sobbing a little bit, but then we cut to Bucky leaving, and I guess that was it. And then we cut to Bucky going by the restaurant where he used to have lunch with the old man and went on a blind date with the girl that works there. And he just looks in the window at them, and somehow they don't see him, and then he just walks away. So, okay. And then we cut to the psychologist lady that we haven't seen since, I think, the second episode. And Bucky has left a gift for her. It's his little checkbook or a little pamphlet full of names that he had to redeem or make amends for and everything. And he leaves her a note and says, oh, thanks for the help, Doc. I finished my book or whatever. Okay, so all of Bucky's sort of troubles and things are just wrapped up. Okay. Why not? What else do we have to wrap up? Oh, yeah, Isaiah Bradley. So Sam shows up at Isaiah Bradley's house, and Isaiah Bradley's like, well, look at you, and now you're Captain America, and I'm still a grumpy old man. And some more stuff like he criticized Sam for not being Martin or Malcolm or Mandela or something. Like there's only 3 black people in the world that you could compare somebody to who's a symbol of anything. And I'm like, okay. And then Sam's like, come with me, I want to show you something. And we're back at the Captain America Museum that we saw in the first episode. And now there is an exhibit and a statue to Isaiah Bradley telling his story in the pantheon of the Captain America legacy. And he hugs Sam, and it's very touching. And it would have been more touching and more meaningful if we hadn't wasted so much time with this flag smasher nonsense and actually just focused in on the Captain America legacy all by itself in this show and not been distracted by nonsense. But anyway, and then we have a long montage with happy music of everybody at Sam and Jennifer's boat, and everybody's having a party, and I'm assuming that they're back in business. As though a business associated with the Falcon and or now Captain America wouldn't already gain notoriety on that alone and have a chance at success on that kind of marketing. And then the show's over. Yeah, Bucky's there. He's happy and playing with the kids. And yeah, happy ending. And then we get a post-credit scene, of course we do, where Sharon Carter is before that same committee that defrocked John Walker. And they give her a full pardon. And they say, there might even be a job open in your old unit. And she walks out all proud and everything. And she gets on the phone and she talks to somebody saying, now we're going to have access to all types of government technology and gadgets. And we're going to have customers. Cut to black. And that's the end of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I'm assuming, and I'm only hoping, well, it wouldn't have even mattered if it was Sharon Carter or anybody else. One of the things that I'm hoping is the outgrowth of this, or an excuse to start, is the Armor Wars storyline. If you don't know what the Armor Wars storyline is from the comic books, that's where the secret technology plans for Tony Stark's armor and things leaked out into the world, and different supervillains and supervillain organizations started making their own armor. It's kind of like what you saw in Iron Man 2, but on a greater scale. And I assume Sharon Carter will be the facilitator of that storyline at some point, if they choose to go that direction. Why did Sharon Carter become a super duper evil, bad person, etc.? No idea. No clue. There's no explanation for that. There's no logic to it at all. Just happened, I guess. She went off to Madripoor for 5 years and lost every modicum of morality she might have possessed previous. But okay, yeah, she's the power broker. Yeah. And Captain America is now a moralizing social justice warrior who makes apologies for terrorists, encourages public officials to look at themselves as villains for simply being who and or what they are. Bucky Barnes has been effectively neutered throughout this entire show. I've been often challenged watching this show to tell whether the look on Bucky Barnes's face is one of sadness and regret. But is it the sadness and regret of Bucky Barnes, or the sadness and regret of Sebastian Stan having to be put through this? Because he's a much better actor, and his character could be doing much better things, but the writing won't allow him to, and he just has to keep kowtowing to all this nonsense going on around him. Yeah, this show would have been a million times better if there was no flag smasher plot. If Zemo had escaped the prison, right, of his own accord, and then between Sam and Walker and Bucky, who has probably a more personal stake in the whole thing, had to chase and fight Zemo. And in between, then you have the struggle of how Captain America, Steve Rogers, would have handled this, and then have the struggle between Sam's version and John Walker's version. You could have had that story. You could have had it much more character-focused, much more personal. If you had to have the power broker in there, you don't make it Sharon Carter, you make it Arnim Zola. You bring it all back together. I mean, what was the point of having all these characters intertwined with the two stories from Winter Soldier and Civil War if you're not going to bring it full circle? What was the point? What was the point of having Zemo in the show wearing the mask one time, never telling us why the mask was there, why it was important for him to hide it? Zemo didn't need to be in this show. You could have achieved every story point that Zemo provided without Zemo there. He was just there. Carly Morgenthau, try as they might throughout this entire show, try as they might in the media, outside in the real world, at no point was this character or her cause sympathetic. At no point was anything that they did to make this character sympathetic work. And the logic of Sam Wilson taking her side by the end of this, after everything that she had done of her own volition, her apologize, like, I didn't mean to kill your friend. What? You meant to kill everyone that you killed in this show, and you meant to attempt to kill a truck full of innocent people. You told your own people you were willing to kill the hostages to achieve your ends. I didn't mean to kill your friend. Well, either she's lying, which I suppose is possible as a distraction or something, or it's really bad writing of a character. And I'm willing to bet it's the latter. So yeah, this series was more infuriating than WandaVision. WandaVision, it had an amount of style and an amount of mystery to it that kept you going. The resolution was disappointing, and the length of time it took you to get there was disappointing. But episode after episode, logic point, quote unquote, after logic point, fight after fight, moralizing after moralizing, Falcon and the Winter Soldier has to be one of the worst Marvel television shows to have been produced. Is it as bad as Iron Fist and or Jessica Jones? Probably not, only on the basis of those shows got more than one season to completely ruin themselves, and this one had all of 6 episodes to do so. Thankfully, only 6 episodes. Amazingly, doing so badly in only 6 episodes. Actually, it might be worse in a way because you kind of concentrated terribleness into a shorter time frame than Iron Fist or Jessica Jones had to do on Netflix. But either way, this series ranks up there with one of the worst shows Disney Marvel, I should say, has ever produced. I'm not going to disparage the Incredible Hulk TV series with Bill Bixby. Okay, there's some things that, yeah, you don't tread on. Marvel television hasn't been all bad. Anyway, that is my review, such as it is, of the last episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier and the series in general. Marvel television on Disney Plus thus far has been exceedingly disappointing. You have these rich characters, you have these rich storylines that you could draw from, and while the WandaVision show should have been shorter and there should have been a bit more pizzazz to some of its resolution, it was interesting. Kept my attention, even though I was disappointed by the end of it. This one, I don't know what they were thinking. Well, actually, I do know what they were thinking because they told us. They told us episode after episode what they were thinking, what message they wanted to get across, what accusations they wanted to put forward, what political agenda they were trying to moralize over episode after episode. It was obvious. And then this one in particular, as they try to give us their coup de grace on what message they want to send. Oh boy, that speech by Sam in the middle of the street, that told you everything you need to know. And it was awful. Absolutely awful. But with that, everyone, I'm going to draw it here. I don't have anything else left to say. And anything else I'd have to say would probably be more repetition of what I've already said. So, what do we have to look forward to? Because happiness is having something to look forward to. Well, the next show on the docket is the Loki show. Loki, who ends up in the Time Variance Authority, after having stolen the space stone in the alternate reality / history of what happened in Endgame. He's going to be playing around with alternate timelines and all types of stuff. Now, I can only hope. I can only hope that there'll be more to be excited about for that show than simply seeing Tom Hiddleston play Loki. Because seeing Tom Hiddleston play Loki, even in a bad movie, Thor: The Dark World, is a joy. Tom Hiddleston is usually all by himself worth at least half the price of admission. I just hope he is not the only thing carrying that show. But when it does come around, I will watch it. Because I am a Laurel. Did I do that again? I think I did that before somehow. I mixed up, I combined loyal and Marvel together because I was going to say I am a loyal Marvelite. I still have in my wallet my membership card in the Wild Agents of Marvel. The Wild Agents of Marvel was the version of the Marvel Comics fan club that existed back in the early 90s. I still have my card. I am a Wild Agent of Marvel, and I always will be. And even bad Marvel is still Marvel. I'm not going to hold myself back from criticizing it when it's bad, but I will watch it because I am seeing the things I grew up with and the characters that I loved as a kid and I still love being portrayed in real life. And occasionally they get it wrong, but sometimes I keep thinking, if they did Daredevil season 1, if they can just recreate that magic, could be so good. But again, going to call it here. Everyone, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you appreciated my having put myself through this show because it was a rough one. If you don't choose to watch it, I don't blame you. I really don't. You haven't missed anything. Not really. You can find all the little bits and pieces you need to inform yourself of the next series just by reading a Wikipedia article and save yourself the trouble. But again, with that, everyone, I'm going to call it here. I hope you all have a good rest of your day. If you'd like to hear more from me or Satsu 2 Cents, you can find the two of us tonight on Satsu 2 Cents' channel at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern for The Lords of the Night, where Satsu and I will take a look at the news of the day, news stories that you submit, what we've been up to on the internet, and then your questions and comments. Everyone, have a good rest of your day. Hope you are all safe and well. If you're not well, please get well soon, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.